Hello, everyone. Danielle Carruthers here with Changemakers Association and the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab. And welcome to the show, the live, interactive, half-hour web show that we're going to do every week this year. And today I have Luisa Saavedra joining me, which is really exciting because, as you can see, she's in my office, like real life. I can touch her. And this is so rare. Yeah. This is so rare in our online world where usually we're, across the computers from each other. So today we get to do a hybrid. We have real life, plus we have you guys joining virtually, and some people live and some people for the replay. So wherever you end up finding us on the show here. Just in case you don't know me and the background of how this all started, my partner who runs the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab with myself, Solen, and Changemakers Association, we love connecting social entrepreneurs and changemakers from around the world. And so this year we really wanted to create where we can interview people who have inspiration and experience and things to share with changemakers, just as another way for us to all grow and learn together. So
perfect. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So as a bit of an introduction, Luisa and I have known each other for quite a long time now. But we kind of met in our earlier lives, which is we worked at HSBC together. And since those days, I guess, and before those days, you were working in finance and tech. And now, most recently, you are the proud founder of the project SME and work with entrepreneurs to create skills and systems and processes. More into that.
Sure.
I guess maybe as a bit of an intro, if you want to tell us about your morning routine, and we'll kick off there.
My morning routine is typically I have a puppy, and so that is my alarm clock, and anyone who's a dog owner will know that that is your alarm clock, is having the dog wake me up, and then we head out for a walk. And I love that time of the day because it's early in the day and I get to sort of be out in nature and mind map what I need to be doing for the day.
Planning
Always
on your
planning
walk.
on my walk. But I find it a really calming experience. So before, especially if you have a busy day ahead of you, it's really nice to just have that moment to be centered and spend time outdoors, and then we get back in, and it's kind of a nice little slow ease into the day. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I love hearing everybody's different routines, because I think as entrepreneurs, it can really shed some light on those soft skills or success factors that really set people up to be successful.
Yeah.
And we don't always talk about them. So
yeah,
that's why I would like to ask that question.
Yeah. Well, and I know some people are incredibly, they do meditation or they have like morning rituals, and beat myself up about stuff like that. It is what it is. And I think just that little bit of time that I get outdoors, that's good meditation for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So what's one thing that you've done in your life that's a bit strange or kind of unique or intriguing that people might kind of get a better sense of who you are as a person?
Well, challenging myself to be in new environments. And so one of the things I tend to do is set up a challenge like going caving. Where you'll spelunk down to into the middle of a cave, and then so I've been to places called Rat's Nest out in Canmore. So if you're out in Canada and you're out near the mountains, there's lots of opportunities to do caving, and so that was an environment that I'd never been in. And then the same, I've been out, for example, and doing big long hikes in the middle of these canyons. So just trying to sort of challenge myself and do something that I wouldn't normally try to do. But yeah, so especially too when you're a city dweller, it's pretty kind of extreme to kind of go all out.
Go spelunking.
Yeah.
And just because I know you pretty well, I know that you love traveling.
Yeah.
So you're always looking for new ways to self and
Absolutely.
learn about new cultures and
Yeah, I love culture. So I even studied intercultural communication. So to me, any chance you get to leave your comfort zone and go see how the rest of the world, it's project management or just life itself, I think it's a great education. So I love, yeah, any chance I can get to get on an airplane, it's a good time. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get into a little bit about the work that you're doing and what gets you kind of excited to get up and do this work. How does that relate to kind of your vision for a better world, or what's your piece of the puzzle that you're trying to inspire people with or challenge people with?
For me, the thing that, so we worked in banking, and a lot of what we did was with business banking and businesses. And so what I saw a lot of was new entrepreneurs who might sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed by the entire process. They have brilliant ideas, or, don't quite how to get started. And so I've always loved that aspect of helping others, whatever sort of career path you're in. And I just felt that there was a bit of a gap between, people are from moving from A to B, but they're just not quite sure how to begin, and they don't know the jargon, and they don't know the. So what I like to focus on is more about the educational aspect of it. So it's not just me coming in and doing a consult and fixing it all for you, which we do some of, but the focus is really on teaching how you can do it for yourself, so that you've got those skills and they're fundamental. And especially if you can with project management in the beginning, then your processes tend to get easier as you grow and develop, because you already have a way of moving from A to B in a concise way. So that's where I focus on, is sort of helping small businesses develop that way. Yeah. Because everyone has a project.
Yeah. Which is a good point. We've talked about that a little bit in terms of your personal life, or what you might be moving towards your goals, essentially, is making all these little projects, right? Yeah. And when you talk about teaching someone to fish, Bill Drayton talks about, I don't want to give a man a fish, I don't even want to teach men to fish, but I want to revolutionize the fishing industry.
Exactly.
So maybe kind of the revolution that you're helping inspire with entrepreneurs is organized and like ready to tackle things, right?
Well, and everyone has their own level of organized. So you realize that something that comes easily for me, which is that sort of linear process driven method, isn't everyone's cup of tea. And so for me, it's not trying to fit somebody into a mold of like, this is how you must do it. It's these are the things that work, but what is it that we can find that works for you? Because if you try to pigeonhole someone into like, this is the process and how you do it, and it doesn't feel natural and it's not organic, they're not gonna. So it's finding, the processes that work for you to get you from A to B, not just cookie cutter.
Right.
We can talk about the theory and what it should look like, but we all know that that's not necessarily reality.
Right. We need reality.
Yeah. And you find too, especially for new entrepreneurs, I tend to say use a project strategy with a to-do list on fire, and it's suddenly covering your entire desk, because there are so many moving parts when you launch a business, and people sometimes don't think about what needs to happen first, and sometimes people focus on they're not looking at maybe scalability. They're thinking these are all the things they want to do with their business, without realizing 6 months, you might want to grow in the last half of the year, and eventually maybe you want to get to this full scope.
Right.
So it's kind of helping, exactly, and just sort of helping people realize that it doesn't have to be all at once, because it's never good to have 80% of 10 things done, but zero activities at 100%, right? So that's great, but you end up not really able or deliver on everything,
or ship, as Seth Godin would say.
Exactly. So I think it's helping small businesses prioritize what's going to be the most impactful project that they can work on today, and what tools can they use to get from idea to completed delivery.
Right. Okay, so that brings up two questions
Mm-hmm.
for me. So one is, entrepreneurs are notoriously creative idea people, or a little bit ADD, shiny object syndrome.
Squirrel.
Yeah, because there's so many exciting things to think about doing and to projects, and especially with social entrepreneurs, what we see is the ideas have so many components and they can be fairly complex in your head, and you're thinking, well, I'm trying to fit in the needs and yields for my beneficiaries and for my customers, and then my communication with stakeholders, and like there's so many moving parts. So for people in that level of complexity, how do you prioritize? And maybe it's the same no matter how complex your project is, but where do you start?
I like to do sort of an assessment with, some of the clients that come to see us, to just get a level set of where you are.
Right.
And I think that's a good exercise for anybody at any stage of their business, and it doesn't hurt to do it frequently.
So like a pause.
Just a pause, and where am I? And sometimes you want to stop and think, okay, well, what's my end goal? Because I think it's a fantastic strength to be so incredibly creative. But anything to an extreme, anything to an extreme can become a bit of a weakness or a challenge. So creativity, all for it, but a little bit of priority, right? So strategically, what is it that you want to accomplish with your business? And what is attainable over the next quarter, 2 quarters, year? Sort of limit yourself to that. As far as that's the only thing you're going to do, but just find something that you can finish in 3 months or a month or however many. And then think about things like, what is your service offering? Have you thought about your pricing? Have you thought about your marketing strategy? What about your competitors? What are they doing? Sort of through all the elements of your business. And sort of get a status check. And from there, you can kind of say, okay, well, this is where I am, where I want to be. Usually it's tomorrow, but let's say a quarter from now.
Right.
And then break down what activity you need to be doing to get to that. And it is distracting because opportunities come up and you don't want to miss out on them. But if you do some planning, that means that you can take advantage of opportunities. And you can also, we like to think for project managers that, managing issues that arise, that's a good project manager. Avoiding issues arising is a great project manager. Right. So a lot of that comes from planning. And I like to say that you just walk the path, right? So if you were to say, so imagine something really simple that most people have done is take a trip. Right? It's think about all the planning that ensure your passport and etc. So there's a bit of a rundown of all the activity that you have to do. Just think about it the same way, all the things you have to do. And if you do a bit of planning and a contingency planning, especially, what if? Well, then photocopy them and leave them someplace safe. And it's not exciting, and it's not the thrilling aspect of your business.
Not everybody gets excited about this.
Yeah, but what I like to say is, if you do it the one time, you don't have to focus on it again, and you can just look at the exciting, fun stuff, right? So if you've got your eyes, if you've got all those things in place, then they're in place, they're reliable, and you can move on to the opportunities and the goal setting, all the fun stuff that you want to be doing with your business.
Right.
Yeah.
The path. And one thing that might be helpful doing that, I imagine, is sitting down with someone else, right? Like you and I have done that before, and articulate what your goal is and the timeline, and see if somebody else thinks it's achievable, and maybe go through walking that path together, like bouncing.
Yeah. I think that's where networks like yourself come in really handy, when people can kind of get into these groups and what's worked for them, what hasn't. And you can bear in mind things, location and regional idiosyncrasies.
Of course, everything's different.
Everything's different, but they can, sometimes folks can shorthand things for you, and you can save a bit of time not making a mistake. And I think that's the key. Most entrepreneurs everywhere are focused on cheaper without scrimping on quality.
Mm.
And I don't think it matters which type of business you have. Every single one of the businesses out there are focused on being efficient in those ways, because time and money are incredible resources that we don't have limitless, bottomless pits for. So yeah, definitely walking the path and talking to others, bouncing ideas off each other. I think those are really invaluable. And I think just going through the exercise, because a lot of people say, well, it's so much planning. It could be an afternoon. Or it could just be a couple of hours. But the fact that you've gone through the exercise means that if you do come up against a roadblock, days trying to figure out what you do, because especially too, because once you do encounter a hurdle, there's a lot more emotion that makes decision making tricky.
Right.
And if you're not in any kind of risk or danger, you just say, well, what if my supplier fell through?
Right.
What if my shipments are delayed? Talk yourself through those elements and come up with these contingency plans. It's great if you can write them down, but at the very least, you've thought through what you're going to do. And so when the moment happens, instead of having that, you can say, wait a minute, I have a plan for this. And let's go do this as best we can. Yeah.
Great. So the other thing I wanted to touch on with you, given obviously the group that we have, is you've done some work with Me to We, which is the social enterprise that earns is to support Free the Children charity here in Canada, and they do really great work. So I'd love to hear more about it with them, and also if you have any insight into, I guess, learnings from working with them as to what you would take away forward with you and share with other social entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how familiar your group is with Free the Children, or it's now rebranded to we.org. But they're sort of an extraordinary social enterprise story here in Canada. They're incredible. And
we're getting totally sun-spotted. That's okay. You guys can still see us roughly?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. The sun is moving.
So they, throughout the world, where you can kind of go and learn a bit about the sustainability models that they have. And that supports their charitable. They have travel. They also have product lines, jewelry lines, etc., all in aid of their charitable activity. And their charitable activity really focuses on sustainability. So I really like that, where it's not necessarily just West knows best and throw money at. It's more around.
Sorry, guys. Well, I can barely see us now.
But yeah, so for me, that's an incredible organization, and they do. Yeah. And so working with them is an incredible education. Yeah, love them. You're all like, I'm wondering how many of them could actually see your face.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You guys can hear us. If nothing else, I don't want to mess with it too much. We'll all get dizzy and.
Turns into a radio program. It's all fine. There's a contingency plan for everything. Right?
Exactly. And actually, funny story. The sun was doing this before we started, and luckily Louisa brought in a plan B, and we taped up a bit of a shield on the sun, but did not think about plan C, which is that the sun is moving as we're talking.
All good.
So you're getting the live experience crash course in contingency planning.
There you go.
This afternoon.
Yeah. And D.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Now, here's a question for you that I would be interested to know, given how logical and our project planning is. How do you?
I'm glad it looks that way, Danny. I'm really glad.
Hey, you have some great skills in this area.
Yeah.
So how do you make those really tough decisions? So, I mean, planning is one thing. But sometimes there's no good that you can necessarily see. So a lot of the time, the social entrepreneurs that we work with have this push and pull between profitability of their organization and I don't know. So what do you do in those tough decision cases?
goes back to a bit of that strategic planning and what your ultimate goals are. So if you have a definite goal and a hard stop, for example, X revenue by this quarter to fund Y, and there's a deadline to it, you have to make those choices between wiggle room and change. So you decide to change on that to take advantage or deal with issues.
So what's your not barrier, but the gray zone?
The gray zone,
like, where's the hard stop and where's the, well, we can maybe deal with this?
So, and that's why you tend to, so when you do projects, people usually write out a charter. It doesn't have to be a huge, long, complicated document. They can be, especially for something like, say, a construction. You're going to want to lay out absolutely everything, but sometimes you can do a simplified charter and essentially say, what is your goal? And you write it out and you make sure you share it with everyone, and you're accountable for it. So, for example, launching, if you've sent out invitations and you've got deadlines and there's expectations for you, you have to decide how much is movable. Right. And you're making that decision of where your wiggle room, those kinds of stuff. Other people are completely fixed, right? They have no option, whether it's a supplier or a brand issue, whatever it is, that they simply can't sway from that. So then that's where you've got your factors, right? You either have to change your scope, your budget, or your schedule. And every business is dealing with that kind of push-pull.
Yeah. So
it's coming up with, when it comes to your passion projects and it comes to your strategy, you're the one who has to set that change. So there's an element of change management in projects as well that kind of says, how do we deal with change? How do we manage the process of it? And a lot of the times you don't want to just do it on the fly. You want to make sure that you communicate it with everyone, that you get buy-in from everyone so they'll support it.
Right.
Because if you change a date, you want to make sure all your stakeholders, so your audience or whoever is aware and is going to on that. Or, but it's up to you to decide early on, and hopefully you encounter that issue. And so again, it goes back to planning a little bit. And I know it seems overwhelming because some people just want to, hey, I got so much to do. I got my...
No time to plan.
Yeah, I've got my to-do list that's on fire. I don't have time to plan. But typically what happens is if you do stop and catch your breath and talk it out with someone and walk your path, you suddenly realize that 8 hours, couple weeks, whatever it is for your planning, walking your path with a map. And it's a lot easier to get through.
Saves you time later.
Yeah, so when you, and I do kind of relate it, depending on who the client is, I do kind of relate it to, whatever map quest you've got. If you stop and you think about where you're headed, it's a lot easier than, for example, you're trying to read a map in a car.
Yes.
Right? So before you unlock that door, sit down, look at where you're going, assess what happens if traffic gets heavy here, what are your alternative routes, get in the car. You tend to have a much easier time, not surprisingly. It's sort of the kids who kind of say, oh, I studied for that exam and I didn't need to because it was so easy. Well, it's probably easy.
There's a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So take a few minutes to just, how much easier would this be if I just planned it out? And then that allows you the time to sort of say, well, where are my hard stops?
Right.
Right. What if it all falls apart?
Yeah.
I
think you touched on something really interesting in terms of looking at those hard stops and thinking about the change and what your wiggle room is early on. And especially, like, it's one thing if it's just you making the decisions. Obviously, you have partners, and so are not necessarily partners, but suppliers and customers. You have other people that are in that back and forth with you, but a lot of decisions about your actions can be made by one person, solo team. But if you're collaborating or have a partner or have a larger team or company, you need to make sure everybody is on the same page as to where those hard stops are and change, right? So one thing Solana and I did before we started Changemakers Association was we wrote a manifesto. And I think that was a really fun way to kind of get those values down on paper. So obviously it's not really super in terms of the nuances, but it has a vision that is documented and we are on the same page
Yeah.
in that, and everybody who wants to or be in touch with us can look at that and get a sense of where might those boundaries fall.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Yes.
is a big deal if
Yeah.
you're on a team, right?
Well, especially too, I mean, a big part of project management is stakeholder management, right? And so
if you can't control everybody
no,
else.
you can't control everyone else, but what you can do is I always find it funny because even somebody who's working solo, you're never working solo. You have vendors, you have customers, you have you're using for shipping, right? All those moving parts are vital to you delivering on time. And so to as great an extent as you can, you want to get buy-in stakeholders, right? So whether it's somebody attending your event, you want to make sure that they're engaged and that they want to, that it's of interest to them, to the guy who's shipping your product out. You want to know that, hey, they're reliable. They understand that as a small business, you absolutely need a big house that you're using.
Yeah.
But when it comes to even just partnering your partner, know that you have buy-in together, that you understand where you're headed, and that you both want the same things. And so when change comes along, it's easier for you to be able to explain why you're making that choice, how it fits into your vision to do. And the other important thing too with stakeholders is to understand their why, right? So you might be passionate about what it is you do, but you need to find stakeholder about why they want to engage in this project as well. Right.
Yeah,
so, and there's a lot, absolutely, there's lots of reasons. I mean, some people are looking for a feather in their cap to put on their resume, their career building, and this might be a great opportunity to showcase a new skill. Other people might be just as passionate about the topic or the goal as you are, but if you stop and just have a conversation, even if they are staff, especially if they're staff, you can't just make an assumption, right? You want to check in with people, and easier down the line, because when you come and ask for that deliverable from your stakeholder, they're going to deliver as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but people don't often, you know, they'll kind of say it's a task, it's a to-do. If you don't really tie it to something that's important to them, go by the wayside. So,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're getting close to the end of our time here, but I did want to ask, what is your number one mistake that you see new entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs make with their planning and their project management? And what's your number one recommendation to help fix that? Or, yeah, what red flags do we need to watch out for?
That are on fire. So to-do lists aren't projects.
What?
So if you don't
have,
what do you mean? Yeah, exactly. So a project is really something that has a start and a stop, and it has an aim and a goal, and it's articulated, and you can actually define what you're doing over this next little while, even if it's simple. Sometimes to-dos are simply just things that have to get done throughout the day. We all have them. But if you can strategize about what your goal is and the activity that you have to be doing to reach that goal and how long you want to spend time on it, the things that help people get from A to B.
Right.
Yeah, as opposed to just, I have 50 things, they're not really connected to one thing.
Right.
So I'll do them all in random order.
To 90% completion.
For some strange reason, I'm not where I want to be.
Right.
Whereas if you stop and you categorize them and say, oh, well, this activity serves this, which is important, but it's not this other activity. So I think doing that.
Taking your to-do list, like let's say you do have that to-do list on fire, would a first step be to kind of categorize those under projects with a start and an end and a goal?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then see where you're at.
Because you might find that you actually have 2 or 3 projects in that list, right? One might be launching your business, because usually everybody's kind of doing it all at once.
Right.
So whether it's, registering your business and doing all the sort of legal and accounting elements of that, plus maybe an event, plus maybe you're launching a book or a web series or whatever it is, you might actually have 3 things on the go. And at least that way, if you break it down, you can kind of say, well, this is the ultimate priority.
Right.
This is going to
you
be
can really see where the priorities need to be.
And there's lots of great online tools, many of them free, that you can actually help you do that. And I always encourage people to take a look at software. Don't use too many. Choose one, because I see that a bit too, where it's, you know, they're on Trello and Asana, and it's like you don't need to, and they've got half their project here and half their project there. They're all
guilty.
Yeah, they're all fantastic. I mean, I think every one of them, but one. Choose one for your organization, and then you
can learn it inside out and really commit to it, right?
Absolutely. And then, you know what, if it's not for you, if for whatever reason you want to try something else, they're out there, and a lot of them are free. They usually have, you know, 5 seats, might be free depending on which software. So give them a try. There's no harm there.
Good.
We're going to talk about that, Danny.
Yeah, I know.
You've got more than one. That's a problem.
Okay, so Len is great at getting organized. I love getting organized and planning too, but I would say she's like a notch more organized than myself. And so we're getting ourselves organized on Asana, which will be fun.
Great. Yeah.
Because dealing with projects split over time zones and not working in the same office, and lots of different levels to where we want to go in terms of the big goals.
Yeah.
So I think having a way to see the stepping stones to get to your big goals, and to feel like you're making progress too, right?
Yeah. So
that you can actually look back and go, wow, we checked off this, this, and this. We launched the web show. It was great.
Yeah.
We had Luisa on. There's some really, really good insights in there for people. So if you find yourself allergic to planning, just pick one thing from today and try it out. Don't feel too overwhelmed with it, right? No. Like any little bit can help.
Yeah, especially too, one of the goals for me is, like I said, I like helping mompreneurs, just anybody who's new to business, because one of the things I don't like is when people feel overwhelmed or for advice and they feel condescended to because they're new. And I think it's, you know, I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I think there's so much room for innovation and ideas and creativity, and you should never feel sort of that you're in over your head and you're not capable. And so the whole goal behind is just to be able to give people those tools and help them find their own workable style.
Right. Everybody's going to do it a little differently.
Absolutely. And no, I'm not a cookie cutter. I'm sure there's project managers out there who are like, well, she should be doing this or MS project or this. And it's like, you know what, use what works and share it with your teams and whatever gets you across that finish line.
Yeah.
So be creative. Don't let anybody tell you there's only one right way to do things.
Yeah.
And don't feel sort of boxed into cookie cutter processes at all. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we're pretty much going to wrap up, but I wanted to end our chat with a question, bring it back more to the personal side of you as a person. And so I want to ask, what do you hope people remember about you? Or like, what's your legacy? What are you trying to leave behind? No pressure.
No pressure, but like, what's the meaning of life? I think for me, it's want to be known for having helped others achieve their potential. I felt strongly about that from a young age. And, you know, I touched on a little bit about not liking it when people are condescended to or bullied, whether it's in business or in life. You know, there's no need for it. And I think, you know, human potential, whether it's yourself achieving it or you helping others achieve it, I think that's a gift, right? And the more we can help people, you know, achieve their goals and help contribute, I think it just becomes, like I said, it's not zero sum. There's room.
Right.
There's plenty of room in this world for that.
Right. Everyone to achieve.
Yeah. And there's opportunities for people to help others in great ways, right? Especially social entrepreneurs who want to blend what they do. So Yeah, absolutely. That would be sort of my meaning,
Yeah.
is to help as many people as I can achieve.
That's a good way to wrap up. And maybe if you just want to let people know where the best way to get in touch with you is, online or
yeah,
otherwise.
You can check out the website, theprojectsme.com, or you can drop me a note at hello@theprojectsme.com and reach out with any questions you have, or if you're looking for tips, or be having some webinars coming up soon.
Awesome.
And so, and a few workshops as well, so people can kind of come in, and maybe we'll do one for social entrepreneurs if there's a lot of questions that come through.
Yeah, for sure. And plus, you're in the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab in Facebook.
Yes.
So.
Yes, you can. Yeah, ask away.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Luisa, for coming and sharing your project management, cat herding insights with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super valuable stuff. And because, we can have all the great ideas in the world, figure out a way to implement them, then they don't mean much for the people we're trying to serve, right? So pretty important getting this stuff organized.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in for our second episode of the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab, the show. It's not, we have too many names flying around, so that's why this is just the show. But it is brought to you by the lab and by Changemakers Association and myself and Solen, who facilitate those two initiatives. And if you enjoyed watching, we'd love to see you back again. Every week we'll meet with someone who has some great insight to share for social entrepreneurs. And we're planning to interview some social entrepreneurs in the coming weeks who have some really cool projects, and I think a lot of experience to share about getting those ideas into action and everything they've learned along the way. So you can subscribe, and we'll send you an email every Tuesday to let you know what's coming next week, and also who we had on the show last week. So you can stay in touch with us that way, and I'll put the link in the description. And we'd love for you to come and join live or after the fact, and just stay in touch. So yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye. Gotta get. There we go. Okay. Bye, everybody.